Welcome to the complete animation of Judy Hopps from Walt Disney Animation Studios' 2016 masterpiece animated feature film, Zootopia. I can't believe that I'm here. These videos take a long time to put together. Just going through these movies frame by frame and then cropping into the characters, and then, it's a process. I'm pretty sure I've spent over 12, 15 hours about working on this. This has taken a long time. A lot of podcasts, lot of YouTube videos playing in the background, and a lot of alt-tabbing, and a lot of crashing. This project has been hands down the biggest undertaking I've ever done for my YouTube channel. And it was so worth it. This movie is gorgeous. I don't think I'll ever get tired of just looking at it. And as a little treat, at the end of this, I included the special features and the teaser trailer. So there's this is basically one of the most complete animations I've ever done in terms of just, extra content, and the bonus features are really good. And one of the things that the bonus features really show is just how much of upset and change this movie went through. Now, I will always say that I value visuals the most in animation, but I will also say that good stories will never not be appreciated by me. And just the sheer amount of revisions that this movie went through, even when it was in the middle of real production. In the deleted scenes, you see scenes that are basically entirely, fully animated. And they look so good, but they just didn't work. And do you know how expensive animation is? The stuff that you're seeing right now, this is all finished animation, where, they've got all the animation right, and all the clothing is working right. Holy cow, this is expensive. I'm pretty sure that those deleted scenes, there's 3 big ones where things really changed. I don't know how much it cost, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was over $3 million worth of work. Because animators are skilled artists. They are incredible. And they have some of the most dedication to their craft that you'll ever see. It's I heard somewhere, it's everybody wants to work at Disney, sometime. Animators, animators, they shift around a lot. They might work on one project and then they just be let go, and then they have to basically apply all over again, and they all have their own portfolios. And a bunch of animators, they want to work at Disney at least once, for at least one project. Some people might, not really like the work culture there, or the company itself so much, but there's a bunch of people who are willing to put up with that just so they can work on a movie like this. And it takes a lot of work. You see these scenes, there's so many moving parts. Even when it's just one character standing there, just moving around just a little bit, they have to work so hard because there's basically character models, and then on top of the character models is all this fur, and then on top of all of that, all these clothes, and those clothes move. That's one of the things that is the most valuable about the special features at the end that you'll see, is just how much clipping there is of like models going through cloth. Like, I've heard it before and I think it holds true that you can have, you know, two characters in armor and they're gonna have a giant epic showdown with lots of dust effects and lots of, you know, dynamic movements and complex choreography, and the animators would be like, great, awesome, I can handle that. You know, just characters in armor, just really solid stuff. Have those same animators and tell them, we want you to animate a character getting into their pajamas and then getting under the covers into their bed. And that animator is just going to facepalm saying, that is a tall ask. Because cloth is so difficult to work with. And here, like the cloth that you see in this scene right here, like, I get, like, it's not super complex, but I can guarantee you that some animator was, like, tearing their hair out of about something that just wouldn't work right. Because it's like modern animation, they want to automate as much as possible. They want to make it so that the character moves, and then the clothes just sort of move with them. And it turns out that that doesn't always work out, and sometimes the animator just has to bite the bullet and hand key everything. And so, yeah, like the sheer amount of detail throughout this entire movie is nothing short of astounding. And this opening scene where, you know, Judy's on the train going into Zootopia, like, you can tell that whoever made this movie was so proud of the world building. Like, so many incredible vistas to see, and you see, like, this entire city, a real city, and one that they actually thought hard about. And yeah, like, one of the crazy things about the whole development of this movie is they wanted to do something that showed that, yes, this world is incredible and complex and has so many moving parts, but it also isn't, like, without its problems. And the whole predator-prey thing is something that they struggled with a lot. In the early stages of development, they were doing these things like, oh, predators can wander around free, but they have to wear these shock collars that would shock them anytime that they, you know, got too excited. And that, like, you know, prey animals were always living in fear of predators. And they went down that road so long, they even made some, you know, preliminary animation tests using it. They had entire scenes storyboarded, and they found out it just doesn't work. And they were right. It doesn't work. And it turns out that there's an entire section of people. There are so many people who are all like, ugh, Zootopia, it didn't have the balls to really go into that. And that's why I like Beastars. Ugh. Like, I am just peeved to no end that people keep on comparing Zootopia and Beastars. And the reason why is because Beastars doesn't hold a candle to Zootopia. Zootopia is the superior in every way. And, like, and it's not just that it's anime. I have an entire, you know, thing about me not really liking anime. They don't animate right. They basically draw moving pictures and then dub over it. Whereas this, everything is voice acted first and then they key the animations to that. Like, even movies that aren't in English, I can tell that whether or not they were properly animated. And, you know, it's gonna happen eventually. Here is my rant about Beastars. Everybody's like, oh, Beastars, it's so edgy and dark. It has, all these characters, and they have sex with each other, and the predators want to eat the prey, and they just do, and they make a big deal out of it. Like, holy cow. Like, that's basically all it has. Like, basically, that's what Beastars is. It's like, here's an animal flick, and they have sex, and the overall arching thing is that predators want to eat prey. Like, if you took away that from Beastars, what would be left? Not a lot. Whereas, if you took away the whole predator-prey thing in Zootopia, just this story, like, there's still so much left. Beastars is so shallow. And also, like, Zootopia was so committed to having good world building that they're just like, you know what? We're not even going to ask questions about things like, what about the birds and the reptiles? And also, it's like kind of there a little bit, but they don't even really even address things like, how do predators eat? It's like, if you look closely, it's implied that they eat fish, and that fish are not sentient. But yeah, basically, I vehemently disagree that Beastars is anything special, let alone that it can eat, like, is even, like, able to be compared to Zootopia. Honestly. But enough of that rant. Zootopia is so good. Now, here is where Judy and Nick first meet. And Judy and Nick have one of the best relationships ever. It's like, one of my favorite things is comparing Sleeping Beauty to, more modern animation. Sleeping Beauty, it's like, the entire movie, what do you know about Aurora? Basically nothing. She has, like, almost no character development. Not really much of an arc either. It's like, she is a MacGuffin. Like, Aurora, she's got a cool name, but she really isn't much of a character. And there's a bunch of reasons why that may be, but the fact remains, like, I'd say, like, the two kings and the bard who gets, stone cold drunk in that one scene, they have more character development than Aurora. Not so in Zootopia. It's like, you can tell Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde are the main characters of this movie, and they are fully developed, fully fleshed out. And it is so satisfying. And then there's, like, the whole, are they in a romantic relationship? Probably. I think that they wisely didn't, really go into that all that much. It's kind of like Po and Tigress in Kung Fu Panda, where it's like, clearly they're getting to have a pretty deep friendship. But will they, won't they? Who knows? The movie's not going to outright say whether it is. Although I think Zootopia is a little more explicit about it. And, one of the things that I say about animation is that an animated movie should have its main characters do everything that you wish you could see them do. And so it's like, this Judy Hopps, like, what does she do? Like, she's happy, she's, emotional, she's angry, she's sad. She runs the entire gamut of emotions, and you can see all of that in the way she moves. And then there's so much action, you can basically see her character model doing anything that you could possibly dream that it would do. You know, like she gets thrown to the side, skids off the ground a little bit, and then runs a little bit, starting on all fours, but then going back up to two legs. This movie does that. Like, this is a movie that thoroughly explores the animation of its characters. Now, let's talk about Judy Hopps, her design. So, she, like, basically the big defining features of her are that she's got some pretty wide hips, she's got a large expressive face with massive eyes, and she has these enormous ears. Like, you look at basically all the other bunnies in the movie, and they, like, Judy has huge ears. I almost feel like, Chicken Hair in The Hamster of Darkness kind of wanted to do what it did just so that it could show, oh, you think those are big bunny ears? We're gonna make even bigger ones. And, like, I gotta say, I am a sucker for expressive ears on animal characters. So, humans, we have, you know, just these ears on the sides of our head, and about the most we can do to move them is, like, moving our entire scalp forward and backward. Like, that, like, there are some people who have, like, some more fine muscle control, and they're able to, you know, do stuff with their ears, but really, human ears are kind of boring and just sort of there. Animal ears are so much more versatile. They are bigger, they are, like, and they're so much more mobile. So, like, the ears that she has on right now, like, they're kind of just, you know, held back, and that can mean anything. It can mean, like, she might be a little bit downtrodden, or it could mean that she's scared, or it could mean that she's, you know, in stealth mode, because, you know, like, when she's peeking over a rock later on in the movie, she puts her ears back, and, you know, that's just the thing to do. And earlier on, you saw how her ears, you know, are also pretty sensitive. And when she, you know, moves her ears around, she can hear better in different directions. Like, and then when she is being perky and attentive, her ears go straight up. Like, holy cow. Judy Hopps' ears in Zootopia are some of the most expressive things I think I've ever seen. And it is just, like, one of the most incredible parts about her character model. Just these massive ears that can do so much. And I just absolutely love it when animators take advantage of ears that way. And it's just so good. So, let's talk about Judy's outfit. So, this whole bit where she's a meter maid and she has a safety vest on, and I really don't like that hat. I don't think she really likes it either. Like, it's, like, coming up soon, you get this bit where she, like, really just is able to release herself. Like this bit right here. She runs, throws the hat away, takes the vest off, boom. She's free and ready to go. I'd say that, like, the Zootopia did in 3 seconds what Elsa took an entire musical number to accomplish in Frozen. It's also worth noting that Zootopia is one of the top 10 highest grossing animated movies of all time. It's number 10 in the top 10. Like, this movie, there's so many movies that got sequels that this one didn't. But let's talk about just, like, general, you know, design of the characters in here. Zootopia is one of several, you know, anthropomorphic animal films that have come out, you know, in the 3D era. It's like before then, you know, there was like Disney's Robin Hood and oh boy, I'm blanking on other ones in the 2D era. But in the modern times, you have Disney's own Chicken Little, and I haven't seen Chicken Little in forever. I need to see that one again as an adult before I feel like I can have a real, opinion on it, but it it was more, it ran the gamut. It had all sorts of animals. But Zootopia only has mammals. And so that's something that puts it that, differentiates it pretty widely from the other ones. The other big ones are Sing and Sing 2, the bad guys, and oh, what was the other one? Whatever. Um, like, I think that Zootopia, like, is the best out of all of them. And, like, I don't even know what they would look like if they had, walking, talking reptiles in this. Um, and one of the interesting things to do is to compare the animals that they have in Zootopia with those other movies. Like, a good example is Sing and Sing 2. So, in, like, the pigs in Zootopia, they have a very interesting art style. And it's like in Sing, they're just different. They're shorter. They're, rounder and things. I think I prefer the design of the pigs in Zootopia. And that's another thing. Zootopia has primates. No. Zootopia does not have primates, but Sing does. And so you get characters like Johnny in Sing, and he, I think that they did a really good job with his character model. So good. But Zootopia just like, we're not even gonna bother with that. We're gonna do a bunch of mammals, but no primates. They even have armadillos in Zootopia. But I think one of the things that I appreciate the most about Zootopia is how hard they worked on keeping the animal in their anthropomorphic animals. Because if you look at Sing, especially Sing 2, the first Sing did a pretty good job of having most of its major characters have a lot of animal left in them. And I think the secret is having short legs and long arms. Because like Johnny, he's got shorter legs and long arms. Basically make it so that if they did bend down onto all fours, they could almost look like they were actual like wild animals. And the scene coming up here, where Judy and Nick go to the Naturalist Club and you see all the naked animals, does a really good job of showing that. Especially the large cat characters, like the lions and tigers and leopards. They do a good job of that. But one of the things that really bothered me, especially in Sing 2, is there were so many characters that just had like human proportions for their animal like forms. Like the one that stuck out to me the most was the tiger character that was part of Johnny's musical number. He was planned on being the dancer who would fight him in the end. And near the end of the movie, like the instructor guy, he tells him to take off all of his costumes so that he can battle Johnny. And he's just standing there, in an undershirt and his boxers. Like, holy cow. He literally just looks like a man with fur and a tiger head on him. Whereas here in Zootopia, basically every character like has a lot more animal left in them, and it works so well. Let's talk about Judy's outfit. So this is the police officer uniform that Judy wears throughout the entire movie, and one of the things about that is they're able to use the same model for basically the entire thing. Like, the outfit that a character wears is just about as much a part of their character as, the actual model that they're in. And when that is the same model throughout the entire movie, it does a lot to smooth out the movie, because costume changes are a huge deal, because it's almost an entire other character, especially. Yeah. In fact, I think that it is no accident that Judy's regular police officer uniform has almost no moving parts. It's all basically skin tight, and it leaves it so that basically the only thing about her that moves or sways with like walking or whatever is your ears. If she had a loose shirt on, do you know how hard that would be to animate? I can tell you how hard it is to animate, because the character that walks with her the entire time is Nick, and he has very loose, baggy clothes. When you look at the deleted scenes, you can tell how much work went into that, because they're in some of the less finished ones, where he's got like stiffer shirts. The shirt is just clipping through, his legs, and a stiff tie is just clipping through his chest the entire time. It takes a long time, and so I think that the designers smartly chose Judy's outfit. So one of the things I really like is, it's a small detail that if you're not really looking for it, you won't probably see it, is Judy's nose and her tail. Like in that scene just before where she was getting good info, her tail was starting to wag a little. It's like, dogs wag their tails, but cute little rabbit wagging tail, that's interesting. And her nose. Her nose is so good. It's like, basically, when Judy is having a really strong emotional time, her nose starts twitching, and it works so well, because it's like you can tell that she doesn't she's a strong character and she doesn't really want to show emotion like that, and so when her nose twitches like that, like they basically call attention to it at the very beginning of the movie. It's sort of an uncontrollable thing when her emotions are just boiling over. So this scene is probably the one that everybody who saw the movie just once remembers the most, because it is a perfectly paced and comedic scene. It's so funny. In fact, I was just talking to my girlfriend's dad, the other day, and I was like, oh yeah, Zootopia is like one of the best movies ever. And all he had to say is, oh yeah, this scene was really good. It was really funny. It was so funny. And it is. I think that's one of the problems about humor, is that when you watch a funny movie, for the umpteenth time, the things that had you crying tears of laughter the first time just don't do that. And so I kind of wish I could watch this movie for the first time all over again, so that I could laugh as hard at this scene as I did the first time. This scene is so well done and so funny, just the sloths and everything. And here's another scene that really shows Judy's ears. And it also, while Nick is there, it also shows off what his ears can do. His ears aren't nearly as expressive as Judy's, but at the same time, it kind of works, because he's spending so much of the movie with a mask on. Basically, he's basically learned to smother who he is deep down, so that he can, be what society expects him to be, and find some measure of success there. So, I'm going to do something with this complete animation that I've never done before. After I finish this recording, I'm actually going to do a live stream where I scrubbed through a ton of this footage and sort of like, give my commentary on some of the bits that I find particularly endearing. Because, the whole thing about complete animation is, go through the entire movie, and every time this character is on screen, I crop into that. And it turns out that when you do that, there's a bunch of stuff that, it gets into the my final product that isn't the most interesting. Like when a character, is out of focus and in the corner of the shot, like I notice that and keep it in there. But yeah, so also look around for the live stream that I'll be doing of this. And I'll keep it saved. Now, one of the things that's incredible about Zootopia is how the sheer variety of biomes that they go to, and that they're all in the same city. Again, incredible world building. They thought about it. They have like an entire wall that basically just makes an entire district-wide refrigeration unit to keep Tundra Town winter all year round. And then they keep what's it called? Sahara Square, super hot. And if you know anything about refrigeration, it's basically taking heat from one area and expelling it to another area. And so it just makes sense that Sahara Square would be one district wall over from Tundra Town, because all the heat that they're sucking out of Tundra Town has to go somewhere, so it might as well go to the place that needs to be warmer. And like the area that Zootopia is built around is also really interesting. It's sort of like, it kind of looks like, maybe Oregon, but more inland. Or maybe it is next to the sea, because, there is, like, water surrounding it. It's never really made clear if that's, sea water and it goes out to the ocean or anything. But, yeah, just the sheer amount of detail that they show in this movie, and just how much they don't explicitly answer, is so good. Like, Zootopia takes the whole premise that a bunch of authors use, where they worldcraft their universes into oblivion. Like, they've got entire tomes of notes that they keep just for themselves, just saying this is how this world works, and then they write their story, and not even a fraction of all the world building that they did makes it into the final pages. But the way that the world is constructed keeps it consistent. And that way you don't have to do giant exposition dumps. Zootopia does a superb job of having this world without having to do giant, info dumps. Which I can't say about some of Disney's other projects. Like Raya and the Last Dragon. Holy cow, Raya and the Last Dragon did info dump in the worst possible way. Just this big 5-minute expose of, story that happens before, and then it gets into something that is more acceptable, where, it just shows the characters as young people. I've got other problems with Raya and the Last Dragon, although I do need to give it another chance. It came out last year. I need to watch it again. But I will say one thing. If I could, I would change release dates of Raya and the Last Dragon with Zootopia in a heartbeat. Because, yes, Zootopia's visuals still hold up incredibly well, but Raya's, they're just newer, better technology. Like, there's so many movies where I wish, I love this movie so much. If only they could have made this exact same movie just a few years later, or a couple decades later, so that they could take advantage of better, more modern tools. Like Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron. Absolutely incredible movie. the way it mixes CG and live action sometimes doesn't mesh the best. And I feel like if that movie was made today, the exact same movie, like same music, same story, same storyboards, like everything is the exact same except for they just made it with better and more mature technology, it would just work better. And Zootopia, I feel like it was at mature enough so that no matter when you watch it, it'll always hold up. Like I don't fear for Zootopia being ever looking overly dated, but there are still some things where it'd be like, if only they had even better tech, this movie would look just that much better. But all those things are things like lighting and even better fur effects and things like the core animation of Zootopia, I think, is flawless. It will stand the test of time because when it comes to CG, there are a lot of elements. There's character models, there are the rigs that characters have that, like basically give them their models the bones by which they can move with. And then there's physics and like cloth and textures and lighting and atmospheric effects and water. Like there is a ton that goes into animated movies. And like the water here is incredible. I'll just say that much. But the character animation where the characters actually just have their models move around in ways, that is something I think that the actual animation of Zootopia, all the things that people slaved over to make sure that it moved right, I don't think that will ever look dated. And like let's compare art styles. So Disney has, for basically ever since Tangled, has had an art style. And I think Zootopia is the pinnacle of that art style, where, it's just like it's like you look at Tangled, you look at Frozen, you look at Wreck-It Ralph, you look at Zootopia, you look at Raya and the Last Dragon, you look at Encanto. It's like there is a lot of visual similarity there, and I really think that the art style peaked with Zootopia. Like Judy's eyes are basically, it's like that art style has seen its, culmination with Judy Hopps' eyes. And I wish that the industry would sort of, try to move away from it, especially Disney. It's like Disney should look at their art styles in their movies and say, we've done that. And I think there's hope for it, because I think it's Into the Spider-Verse. Sony Pictures Animation's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is the turning point. It came out in 2018, and it is the thing that was able to show to not just, the animation industry, but the people who, write the checks for the animation industry, that it can be successful to have an interesting, unique art style. It's like Zootopia, this is a beautiful movie, but even you can agree that there have been so many movies that have this, sort of clean but realistic look, and it's been explored. It reached its peak in Zootopia, and then the rest of the industry kept on exploring it. Look at Sing 2. Sing 2 came out last year and was such a good movie. I have nothing but praise to say about Sing 2. I think Sing 2 and Zootopia are rivals. Zootopia wins, but Sing 2 is still really good. But what it really comes down to is we've seen this. We've seen this for years, and it's time for something new. And Into the Spider-Verse was able to sort of start a movement. And so Pixar is starting to do stuff that looks a little bit different, with Luca and Turning Red. Those art styles are not, the Disney art style. Even Pixar went and did the Disney art style with Coco. Coco is an incredible movie, but it just its visual style is, in this tradition. And I think it's good that we're starting to see stuff breaking away from it. Lightyear kind of regressed. It's sort of going back to that. Not quite, though. And then... But now DreamWorks is getting in on it. Earlier this year, in 2022, DreamWorks released The Bad Guys. And I just barely watched it again. I saw it in theaters with my girlfriend earlier this week. I went and saw it again in 4K. Oh my goodness, such a beautiful movie. But the art style is so good. It's kind of sad that, the only mammal characters in there were Diane, Wolf, and what's his face? The guinea pig who's the villain. Those were the only mammals besides the humans. And I said it once and I'll say it again, I really wish that The Bad Guys was all animals. Having a weird juxtaposition of animals and humans. It was interesting, and they made it work, but I wish that it was all animals and more mammals, because mammals are cool. Although Mr. Shark, I think that they did a pretty good job of making, a sea creature, be a terrestrial entity. Really interesting. But yeah, but the big thing is that the art style of The Bad Guys is so bold and different. It has, extra outlines. It has a whole lot of, extra little flourishes that they put there. Like, when Wolf taps his hand on the counter, they might just have a couple lines coming off of that to sort of accentuate it, giving it a bit of a comic book look. And it works. It's so good. I think that we are hopefully going to see a whole lot more heavily stylized movies coming out, and we all have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse to thank for it. There's no sign that Disney is going to do that yet. Right now, the most that we know that Disney is doing is Strange World, and I think it looks promising. I'll watch it. I think I'll enjoy it. But it's Strange World, from the trailer I've seen, it looks like it's still just taking, something similar to, Disney's style that they've been with for forever. And they're generating interest by just taking you to absolutely incredible places. And so that is one way to do it, have visually striking things by, taking the style that you have, but then just making the setting be, the crazy outlandish thing. But hopefully Disney will get on the bus. And then later this year, the DreamWorks is doing it again with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Now, I just rewatched the first Puss in Boots about a month ago for the first time since it came out in theaters, and I found it to be a completely enjoyable movie. Really good. I liked what a bunch of the things that they were doing in there, and visually it holds up. But it kind of has, a similar kind of style thing where it's, going for more realism. And I think DreamWorks is finally coming to the realization that that has been done before. And so if you look at the commercials for Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, it is doing incredible things, so much more stylized, with a much more painterly aesthetic. It's different, and it's appealing. Like, we've explored this art style for so long that just, trying something different at this point is enough to, put eyes on it. Of course, what I really want is for the industry to... I want the pendulum to swing back towards hand-drawn stuff, 2D. Like, look at 2020's Wolfwalkers from Cartoon Saloon. Holy cow, that is one of the most visually striking movies of the last 10 years. And it did it not because of like any thing that couldn't have technically been done before so much, but it's just I'm a sucker for 2D. Now let's talk about franchises. Like, it is so rare to get new IPs that just take off and everyone loves. And Zootopia kind of, was a big surprise hit financially. It made over $1 billion, and there wasn't, a Zootopia brand. Like, this is a new thing. And the problem with franchises is if it turns out to be profitable, they'll just keep pumping it out. They'll milk it dry. Not really dry, but they'll just keep going on it. And then you get things like the MCU. Like, Disney is they're the poster child of just taking a franchise and just making more and more and more and more with Star Wars and the MCU. And I just find it sad that the stuff that I would like to see more and more and more of is not the stuff that we're getting. Like, I really like Star Wars, and, I'm there for Marvel. But we haven't seen anything new about Zootopia. All we have now is that Zootopia Plus has been announced. Haven't seen any trailers or anything. We've seen, like, one promo image. And it's just... And it's a lower budget, anthology series that is streaming exclusive. I kind of wish we could just have another movie. And it doesn't even have to be a continuation of this story. Like, I would love it if there was another Zootopia movie and Judy and Nick weren't even in it. I feel like this world is so rich. And then there's the sad thing about, like, Disney, like, Walt Disney Animation Studios is, fairly prolific, but even so, when they make a dud, it stings. Because, when the MCU has a dud, like Eternals, in my opinion, I'm not saying Eternals is bad, I'm just saying that I think it's the worst MCU movie by a pretty long shot. When the MCU has a dud, it's like, okay, whatever. Like, they'll probably have another pretty good one coming out in less than a year. When Walt Disney Animation Studios has a dud, it's like, it feels a lot worse. And so, it kind of gets frustrating when you see movies like Gigantic, which was supposed to be, Disney's take on Jack and the Beanstalk or something. Like, that movie was in development hell for years, and then they canceled it. And then there's one part of me that said, okay, Disney knows when a project isn't working, and they're just like, all right, we're not going to send this to fruition. Better that this movie had its chance and then get canceled rather than make a movie that is bad. But then there's also the cynical part of me where it's like, how bad could Gigantic have actually been if they finished it? Like, we've all seen Ralph Breaks the Internet. Like, holy cow, Disney is able to put out an underwhelming sequel when they have a mind to. And so that part of me is like, maybe it's best if they don't make another Zootopia movie. Because I would much rather have one masterpiece that stands on its own rather than a masterpiece that gets followed up by stuff that just doesn't live up. Because Wreck-It Ralph, such a good movie. I need to watch that one again. I don't think I've really sat down and watched Wreck-It Ralph since it came out back in 2012, and I really enjoyed it then. But then I saw Ralph Breaks the Internet, and holy cow. You know how I said that I put visuals above all else, and that if the story kind of falls flat, I can still enjoy how good it looks? Wreck-It Ralph managed to look pretty good, but have a story that I just didn't care for so much, and yeah, I need to watch it again sometime, but I'm just saying, the first time I saw Wreck-It Ralph, I didn't think too much of it. But that's also another thing about me. I am firmly of the opinion that, well, maybe not opinion, like, this is how it works for me. If I like something the first time, I'll probably like it when I watch it again later. If I don't like something the first time, there might be something about it that makes me come back to it, and then I'll like it. And there can be no better example than The Last Unicorn and The Secret of NIMH. I saw The Last Unicorn on a tablet, and I regret that ever since. That was my first time seeing it. I just wasn't that into it, and I went away from it thinking, yeah, that wasn't great. But then when I got the Blu-ray of it and watched it on a proper TV with a proper sound system, I was like, wow, this is really good. I'm enjoying this a lot. And same thing with The Secret of NIMH. I saw The Secret of NIMH, like, for the first time, suboptimal circumstances, didn't think too much of it, watched it again on Blu-ray with a good TV, and all of a sudden I'm like, this movie is incredible. This movie is a masterpiece. This movie is, like, the best Don Bluth movie ever, and it was his first. Not like the first movie he ever worked on, but, like, of Don Bluth movies, it was his first one. And so, maybe I can go back and see Ralph Breaks the Internet and have a better opinion of it. Who knows? I want to like movies. There's so many people out there who just dismiss stuff, where it's like, movies that I like, and then when people dismiss it, it's like, come on, are we watching the same movie? I like this one so much. The Hobbit movies, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, those are movies that a bunch of people really don't like, and I was like, I really like those. It's like, obviously The Lord of the Rings is the better trilogy, but I like The Hobbit. The whole trilogy. The bloated, stuff with a ton of stuff that wasn't in the book. Yeah, that Hobbit trilogy, I like it. And so, who knows, maybe if they did make a Zootopia sequel that was underwhelming, I would learn to like it as well. Because, I'll just see it once and not think much of it, and then come back to it years later. So, I'm pretty sure that this part of the story, where Judy is wearing, the pink undershirt and then another pink shirt that's not even tucked in, like, I'm pretty sure that the animators had a lot of problems with this, because clothes like these like to clip through. Like, you'll see it as we get to the deleted scenes near the end here. Now, one of the problems of this complete animation is it's over an hour long. I have a rule that I very rarely make complete animation of main characters, because they have so much screen time. You could literally just, anybody who wants it from me could just watch the movie, and just by watching the movie, you're basically getting it. Getting what I do, because, like, Judy just has so much screen time. And this bit right here, some of the best animated emotions in all of 3D animation. The voice acting was on point, and then they matched it perfectly visually. Holy cow. This is a master. Like, this bit right here, absolute triumph of character expression. But yeah, so the whole thing with... I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, because this complete animation is so long, I'm starting to run out of things to say. Like, this movie is incredible. The fact that I was willing to spend so many hours scrubbing through its footage is a testament to how much I enjoy this movie. And yeah, this is like one of the only times I've done a main character. Like, the other one is when I did Mrs. Brisby from The Secret of Nim. And I guess that means I really, really just like some movies enough. Because the time I spend, just looking at this footage in an editor, finding frame by frame where clips end or cuts end, and then doing all that, like, it was a joy, because this movie is just so much fun to look at that, like, I could have been doing other things. I could have been watching other movies. I could have been playing video games. I could have been watching shows. Like, there was a ton of stuff I could have been doing instead of making this video, or making, many shorter videos. But I feel like the time I spent working on this was time well spent. Now, here we come to part of the movie that I feel doesn't land so well. The whole, like, secret reveal that what they're really doing is they're farming these flowers that produce a special toxin that causes you to go crazy, and they are, condensing the toxin down into something that can, have an effective dose just through skin contact. Like, like, that whole reveal is pretty neat, but when the other reveal that Mayor Bellwether, or Assistant Mayor, then Mayor Bellwether, is behind it all, it doesn't feel that satisfying to me. Because, like, you can see that she had motives. Like, she did spend the entire movie sort of being pushed around by bigger, more powerful creatures. And, like, you can see that. But, like, it just felt like the big reveal and then her giving her big villain monologue at the end, it didn't feel like they'd quite earned that. So, yeah. And let's talk about another thing. So, the big thing in Zootopia is that it has an us versus them dynamic with predators and prey. And there's a ton of people where when they watch this, they're like, oh, so it's a commentary about racism. And I think that is an oversimplification. I think that one of the neat things about fantasy and science fiction, or whatever genre you want to call this movie, is that it's able to explore issues that don't even exist in our real world. Like, in the real world, there is no, like, separation of species. We're all humans. Like, nobody, like, yeah, we're all humans. In here, they are literally different species. Like, they cannot breed with each other. As much as, they might, have relationships with each other, try as they might, they're not gonna have viable offspring. Because if that was a thing, in a city like this, you would see so many hybrids walking around. And it's like, interspecies relationships is not something that they really focus a ton on. Like, basically, they only show one. But yeah, even if Nick and Judy, did the deed, I don't think that anything would come out of it. It would just be them being in their relationship. And so, yeah, like, I don't think that the whole predator-prey thing in this movie, Like, I think that it's kind of short-sighted to just say, oh, it's racism. It's an allegory for racism in the real world. Look at that. I don't think that really tracks. I think it's a conflict that is unique to this world. And Beastars also, kind of does that. But Beastars' thing is like, that's the only thing it does. It's like, holy cow. If you can't tell, I really dislike the world building of Beastars. I also dislike its character designs. I dislike its art style, but that's just because it's anime. And they can't really fix it because it's based off a manga. Like, yeah. As much as I like Disney's stuff that was sort of based off of fairy tales, I think that when Disney hits an original story, and, like, some of them can be really good. So, one of the things about animation-wise that I really liked about this scene is that if you look really close, like, they actually show that, Judy's deep gash in her leg actually does stuff. Like, when they're running away, she's, hopping around on just one leg. Like, and then when her and Nick stand up and she's standing there, she is, favoring that one leg. Like, there are just so many details that they can have in animation that they don't have to talk about. Like, nobody has to say, hey, Judy, you're really favoring that leg. Because obviously she is. Look at it. Like, that's why I think that visual storytelling is the best. Like, right there, like, she was handling that soccer ball like a champ. You see that and it's like, oh, obviously that's not her first time with a soccer ball. She probably was, like, a really good soccer player in her younger years. And she just has the muscle memory that, a couple of kids could be having a soccer ball right next to her, and then she could instantly juggle the ball around in a really impressive way. Now, one of the things I wish that I could see is how they really did the pins on when they're pinning, officers' badges to them in this movie. Yeah, so I think that the wolf character designs in this movie are also some of the best. Like, comparing the wolves in Sing 2 to Zootopia, I just think that Zootopia's wolves look better. Like, just character designs in general, I think Zootopia does the best. So I don't think I'm being overly biased or anything. Like, I freely and openly admit that I think that Sing 2 is the bee's knees. A really good movie. I just think Zootopia is better. And one of the things is, Zootopia actually seems to be doing world building. It's like, Sing and Sing 2, they're basically just the human world, but with animals, and all sorts of animals. They have more than just mammals. And I think it works for what they're doing. I just think that Zootopia does it better. So here we are getting into the extra stuff. So the movie's over. This is the teaser trailer. I think that this teaser was made so early in development that they hadn't even done stuff. Here's some good concept art. Here's animation tests. Oh my goodness, these animation tests are so good. Love the concept art, the animation tests, because you see stuff, like you see how they struggle with cloth and things. And here's a deleted scene. There are 3 big deleted scenes that they had, more or less mostly completed animation for. And they're so good. It's sad that these didn't work in the final cut of the movie. Like, most of the time when they're deleted scenes, I firmly say, yes, it was good that this wasn't in the final cut of the movie. And a bunch of the time I'm like, but I do enjoy seeing into the creative process, because these deleted scenes, it's like, oh yeah, like, similar to what we had but different. And coming up soon, where you're gonna see just how much the things change. Like this bit, you're able to see, like this cut bit, like it kind of focuses on Judy's family so much. If you look in the final cut, it's like, yeah, Judy's set, like the parents say that Judy has, over 200 brothers and sisters, but here, like, it kind of draws more attention to that. I think that they kind of made the right choice, doing a ton of stuff, drawing attention to big families. And this grandpa character, they did a lot with him. He's the curmudgeonly old guy who, isn't afraid to say, racist things. But then here's this bit, like, this is what I was talking about. You get to see how hard it is to deal with cloth. You see that, like, Judy's model is sticking out of her shirt. And it's like, those are things that take forever to fix. Like, animation, like, I don't know if I buy that 2D animation lost out to 3D because it's cheaper or easier. Like, you look at, how rough things can be and then how much has to be done to fix it. I don't know if it's easier or cheaper. Like, this bit right here, like, I think she's supposed to be under the covers. Here. But she isn't, and I think that's because it's unfinished. Because actually animating her being under the covers in this scene would take so long. And you can see her ears clipping through the pillow, so much stuff. Like, yeah, I think that the reason 2D won out over 3D for the last, 15 years is because the people who write the checks decided that that's what sells. And when that's all you make and it sells, it's sort of a self-fulfilling, prophecy. It's like, oh, we think that 3D will sell and 2D won't, so we are only going to make 3D. And lo and behold, 3D sold, so we're just going to keep making 3D. And I guess there's a smidgen of truth with that, because a bunch of studios have been burned with stuff that didn't sell well before. But there's a ton of reasons why it didn't. Like, Cats Don't Dance and The Iron Giant. Warner Brothers, could easily have said that's the reason why it didn't sell is because of, whatever. But you can also find other things like, you didn't market it. You didn't, do your... you as a distributor didn't do your due diligence to make sure that enough eyes were gonna look at this. Now here's another one where like, I am so glad that they changed this scene right here, where I think they said that this was back when Nick was gonna be the main character and Judy was the one who sort of got introduced midway through. Like, I am so glad that they changed the directions that this movie ended up going. But I'm also glad that they preserved these earlier drafts so that we could see them. Because, like, writing is such a difficult thing. It is so hard to make a story that is good and one that is well written. Because, like, good stories and well written stories are different. Like, they're connected, but they're different. And I just think that this earlier draft wasn't the best it could be, and I think the final draft ended up being a whole lot better. Who's to say what could have been done to improve Zootopia, but as it is right now, it is so good. Visually, incredible, and story-wise, also really good. Here's some final bits of concept art, and here's some good animation tests. This right here. Such a good test. So here we come to the end. Thanks for sticking around. Thank you for watching.